Hello and welcome back to the Data Protection Diaries, the channel where we try and bring you as much information about the privacy industry as we possibly can. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you're not your first time here and you come back, thanks for coming back. Either way, if you find this interesting, useful, etc., please do hit that subscribe button. Help us reach 300 subscribers because it really helps us to grow the channel and to push this information out to more people. This week has been a very busy week in the privacy industry, and today we are going to cover three specific topics. First up is the release of the ICO's Appropriate Age Code, which is going to come into force on the 2nd of September and will have a 12-month transition period. The Age Appropriate Code is essentially a code looking at how individuals and child users are using information societal services, so things like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, etc., and sets out a range of priorities or regulatory priorities for the ICO on how they are going to regulate how children have access to those services and at what age it is appropriate for children to have access to those services. The ICO have stated that this is a regulatory priority. First of all, they are not going to go after organisations that are currently in a transition period or making a change. So there will be 12-month grace. But after that 12-month period, they will start looking at those societal services, how they are making sure that children of an appropriate age are using those systems, and how they're going to enforce that. From a regulatory perspective, how they're going to manage that, I don't particularly know. Much of these age-appropriate services, certainly the bigger ones that everyone is most familiar with, do not come from within inside the UK. So accessing those and regulating those is going to be a big challenge for a regulator, which, as we've already seen in previous videos, has not necessarily been as active as people would like. But it's good that the code has been written. It's an important thing to have, especially in this day and age where so many children are accessing the internet and accessing these services. So it's good to see something being done, and we'll look forward to seeing how that pans out. Next up this week is the news, the continuing news, that the Crest certification exam may have been cheated by a number of people working for the NCC group. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Crest and what it means, Crest is the accreditation certification body that looks after some of the pen testing certifications. So you can have a Crest approved organisation, which means that they run under a particular approved methodology, and you can also have Crest certified pen testers. Now, Crest certified pen testers have to sit a specific exam, much like you would for CISSP, CIPPE, CIPPM, and other certifications in other parts of the industry. Now, the importance of this is that those certified testers are obviously much more valuable to an organisation or a consultancy than testers who are not. They can be charged out at a much higher rate, and Crest is perceived by the wider user base as being the sort of benchmark for pen testers. The issue has arisen here that somebody, potentially from within NCC, has posted access to some files on GitHub which appear to show NCC labelled documentation explaining to its consultants and its pen testers who are sitting the exam essentially how to pass the exam and providing detailed notes on how to complete those examinations. So far, we haven't heard anything from NCC other than they are carrying out an investigation. Crest themselves have been very, very good and very, very clear about providing information about the investigation, and they have appointed an independent investigator in the form of a former detective chief inspector. Where the story gets really interesting is, in fact, that an NCC director was the current chair of the Crest Advisory Board. They have now been removed, and they have been removed for the duration of the investigation, but it does raise concerns within the industry that A, of the benefit of certifications, but B, probably more importantly, how those certifications can be manipulated by much larger organisations when there is significant financial gain available. Again, the key to point out here is that this is relating to the Crest examination for the pen testers, not the Crest methodology for the organisations themselves. All of the exams have now been pulled. The assessors working on those exams are being looked at, and the exam itself is being rewritten and will be back out in around 2 months. So for the time being, everything has stalled, but there is still much more to be done here, and a lot of investigatory work is going to have to be carried out before we can really understand what happened, why it happened, and what the impact is going to be on the pen testing industry. So the final news story this week relates to the A-level exam results saga. Now, what has this got to do with GDPR and privacy? Well, interestingly enough, we were very close to seeing what could have potentially been a mass enforcement or a mass action taken against the Article 22 right, which of course the right to object to automated decision making. Now the reason for this is because the examination boards here in the UK had decided that the best way to determine somebody's A-level results was to run them through a fairly nondescript algorithm looking at a variety of factors, including the score they received from their teachers over the course of their terms, the potential score that the teacher believes they would have got, also their previous exams, but then taking into account how successful the school they attended had been in recent years, which seems a little bit unfair considering some people can perform really well in exams and other people cannot perform so well. And also, just because a school didn't perform well last year doesn't mean they haven't had an improved cohort, or doesn't mean they haven't improved teaching and can do better this year. This raised a number of questions around how the bias lays out between schools in wealthy areas, where inherently there are always higher scores, and schools in poorer areas. Interestingly enough, we understand that the scores from Eton and a number of other private schools were not altered in any way, and the students were given their predicted grades. Lots of other schools obviously had their grades changed. The government has now done a complete U-turn on this, and they have decided to award grades based on the teachers' predicted grades, which is arguably where it should have been done in the first place. What that has done is obviously reduced any impact, doesn't require any further investigation, but has also mean that they can move away from this large class action of a load of people trying to enact their Article 22 right, which would automatically mean that the results would have to be reviewed and the algorithm would have to be reviewed by an individual, and an individual would have to score each grading appropriately, which is what should realistically have happened in the first place. So it would have been a really fantastic use case for the right to do object to automated decision making, but unfortunately it's not something that we're going to see today. But keep your eyes peeled because it is a very powerful tool. For the news for this week, obviously we'll keep our eyes on what's going to go on next week. It is the end of August. Things are arguably slowing down, but again, not many people can go on holiday because obviously there are lots of challenges going on, so there may well be plenty to go on about. If there is anything in particular that you think we should cover, or you have any more information on any of the things that we have covered today, do drop me a message either down in the comments below, or you can find me on LinkedIn and we'd be happy to talk about it further. For now, thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.